As the Roman officer faced Jesus and witnessed his death, he exclaimed, "This man truly was the Son of God." Mark 15:39 LT. The final moments of Jesus' life are captured in Mark chapter 15, verses 33 through 39. Jesus endured a torturous path to the cross, facing abandonment, ridicule, humiliation, and torture. Hanging on the cross, he breathed his last breath, signifying the culmination of his sacrifice. In Mark chapter 15, verse 33, it is noted that darkness enveloped the land from noon until 3 in the afternoon. This otherworldly darkness, occurring when the sun was at its zenith, lasted from 12 o'clock in the afternoon until 3 o'clock. It's important to highlight that this darkness couldn't have been caused by an eclipse, as the moon, being full, cannot come between the earth and the sun. This mysterious darkness undoubtedly held a profound significance. By God's prompt intervention, in the records of Flagon of Tralles, a freedman of Emperor Adrian, a vivid description unfolds. Eusebius, in his historical accounts of the year AD, extensively quotes Flagon. According to Flagon, in the 4th year of the 202nd Olympiad, an extraordinary eclipse of the sun took place, surpassing any previous occurrences. At the 6th hour, the day transformed into the darkness of night, revealing stars in the heavens. Simultaneously, a great earthquake shook Bithynia, toppling many houses in the city of Nicaea. Flagon attributes the described darkness to an eclipse, which, given the rudimentary state of astronomy knowledge at the time, seemed plausible. Notably, an earthquake is also mentioned by Flagon, aligning his account closely with the sacred narrative. Saint Cyprian adds that the sun was compelled to withdraw his rays and close his eyes, unwilling to witness the crime of the Jews. To the same purpose, Saint Chrysostom emphasizes that the creature could not bear the wrong done to its creator. Hence, the sun withdrew his rays to avoid beholding the deeds of the wicked, chapter 15, verse 34. At the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which is interpreted as, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Mark 15:34. St. Mark uses the Aramaic form, while St. Matthew refers to the original Hebrew, possibly rendering it as, "Why have you forsaken me?" Mark 15:35. In this poignant moment, some bystanders, upon hearing Jesus, mistakenly thought he was calling for Elias. The intricacies of language and interpretation add depth to the narrative. Despite the mysterious darkness mentioned in verse 35, it undoubtedly heightened the dreadful atmosphere of the situation. From that darkness emerged the voice of Jesus, and considering the belief that Elijah had a connection to the Messiah, some bystanders naturally interpreted the words as a call for Elijah. Mark chapter 15, verse 35. In a swift sequence of events, someone ran and filled a sponge with vinegar, placing it on a reed to give to Jesus to drink. There was a speculative anticipation. Let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down. Mark chapter 15, verse 36. As Jesus cried out with a loud voice, surrendering his spirit, a profound moment occurred. The veil of the temple tore in two from the top to the bottom. Notably, there were two veils, one before the holy place and the second before the Holy of Holies. The significance of this tearing would later resonate, symbolizing a profound shift in spiritual understanding. The Holy of Holies, where priests were always present, corresponds to our chancel choir, the holiest part of the building. This sacred space, always kept closed, permitted entry only to the high priest, and that too just once a year on the day of expiation. The veil that tore at our Lord's death was the one placed before the Holy of Holies. The officiating priests, responsible for this sacred task, would enter the holy place on the evening of the day of preparation, at the hour of the evening prayer, which aligned with the time of our Lord's death. Between the two curtains or veils, outer and inner, they would fulfill their duties in this solemn setting. It would then be the responsibility of the officiating priest to roll back the outer veil, exposing the sacred space to the people in the outer court. To their amazement, they would witness the inner veil ripped apart from top to bottom. As described by Josephus, these veils or curtains were of immense bulk, heavy and beautifully embroidered with gold and purple. The tearing of the veil signified two profound implications. Firstly, the first dispensation with its rites and ceremonies was now uncovered by Christ, breaking down the middle wall of partition. This meant that not only the Jews but also the Gentiles could draw near by the blood of Christ. Secondly, it implied that the way to heaven was laid open by our Lord's death. In the poetic words, "When thou hadst overcome the sharpness of death, thou didst open the kingdom of heaven to all believers." This transformative act ushered in a new era of accessibility and spiritual connection. The veil implied that heaven was closed to all, until Christ, by his death, rent this veil in twain and laid open the way. Mark chapter 15, verse 39. When the centurion, who stood over against him, saw that he so cried out and gave up the ghost, he declared, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." Notably, the words "so cried out" are not found in the most important authorities. The centurion's duty was to keep an eye on everything and ensure that the sentence was carried out. Standing close to the cross, there was something in the dying sufferer's entire demeanor that struck him profoundly. In those weary hours, he witnessed a meekness and presence unlike anything he had ever seen before, prompting the spontaneous declaration that truly this man was the Son of God. In the dignity of the sufferer, the Roman officer heard words profoundly impressed upon the faith and reverence of Christians. As Jesus hung there, occasional utterances fell from him, but it was the piercing cry just before he yielded up his spirit that left an indelible impression. The conclusion was inescapable. He was, in very deed, God's Son. In just a few verses, Mark packs a powerful punch. Amidst the strange events, attention is drawn to the Roman officer who admired Jesus after his death. Jesus left a unique impact on those close to him. The thief on the cross had reacted uniquely, and now the overseeing soldier remarks that Jesus is the Son of God. Throughout his ministry, Jesus had kept his identity hidden, but now, as a commander, a centurion, in control of the soldiers dealing with Jesus, it became plain for everyone to see. The influence of Jesus was unmistakable, reaching even those in positions of authority. The soldiers who dealt with Jesus had a role in the taunting and beating, possibly participating in crowning him with thorns. It remains uncertain whether the Roman officer himself engaged in such antics, or if he maintained a more respectable demeanor. He might have been the one who gave Simon of Cyrene the task of carrying Jesus' cross. Once at Golgotha, the place of crucifixion, the Roman officer's role shifted to supervising the execution of offenders via crucifixion, a routine aspect of his job. However, as Jesus was raised on the cross, it became evident that this was no ordinary day at the office. Jesus ceased to appear as a common criminal, and the Roman officer who initially approached it as routine experienced a transformation. Perhaps it was the way Jesus engaged with worldly powers, never begging for his life. Or maybe it was Jesus' words of love from the cross that deeply moved him. Perhaps it was the strange darkness that blanketed the land, or maybe it was the tearing of the veil. Alternatively, Jesus could have imparted truth to the Roman officer as they traveled down the road. Something stirred in this man's soul as he gazed at Jesus' lifeless body. Whatever it was, I imagine him staring up at the cross, mouth gaping as he wraps words around his thoughts. This man truly was the Son of God. What a declaration for a Roman officer to make. If any religious leaders overheard him, they would have lost their minds. Consider, he had spent the previous day persuading Rome to execute Jesus precisely because he was blaspheming about being God's Son. It's one thing to recognize Jesus as the Son of God when he's alive. Even Peter recognized Jesus as the Messiah in Mark chapter 8, verses 29 and 30. The Roman officer's declaration holds profound weight in its context. And Jesus said unto them, But whom say ye that I am? Peter answered and said unto him, Thou art the Christ. He then charged them not to tell anyone about him. When Jesus is alive, it's one thing to recognize him as the Son of God. It's another thing after the resurrection. Many people came to faith then. However, to recognize Jesus as the Son of God when he is dead, and all hope seems gone, is a unique acknowledgement. This Roman officer might be the only person to have done such a thing. What happened to him afterward is unknown. With Jesus alive, word spreading, he might have grappled with the gravity of his crimes against Jesus. While we don't know the officer's fate, what is clear is that it wasn't too late for him. On the cross, Jesus paid the cost for this officer's actions, providing an opportunity for redemption and a renewed perspective on the profound events he witnessed. Jesus was paving the way for this officer to be reconciled with his Father, as Stuart Townsend beautifully expressed in How Deep the Father's Love for Us. Behold the man upon a cross, my sin upon his shoulders. Ashamed, I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. We must realize that Jesus died for us. Once you know him and have heard the gospel, rejecting him changes you irreversibly. The rejection of Christ, as seen when the rich young ruler turned away grieved, is emotionally disturbing. Rejecting the claims of Christ is a serious matter. For many of you, it will be an hour of decision. Receiving him today is a profound choice. While some have been rejected by God, like Saul, it's essential to reflect on the rise and fall of Saul as an example.